Okay, here we go. Step one, what do I want to find first? The domain. Zip it. How do you find domain? Take your denominator, which is d of x, and set that not equal to 0. So that's going to be x squared minus x minus 6 cannot be 0. What do I do? X minus 3 times x plus 2 cannot be 0. X cannot be 3. X cannot be negative 2. Put it in the real number system. What does this mean? It means you have a hole in your graph there, correct? Now, after I find my domain, what am I looking for? Vertical asymptotes. In order to do vertical asymptotes, I have to first completely simplify my original problem. That means I need to factor completely and see if anything cancels out. So that gives me x plus 1 on top and x minus 3 on the bottom times x plus 2 on the bottom. Does anything cancel out? No. So what's my vertical asymptote then? Nothing cancels out. It's going to be x is equal to 3 and x is equal to negative 2.
Would you be the cancel out?
Oh, do I need to write anything down?
I wasn't there in my head. Writing down isn't helpful.
I'm not sure the other one's helping very much either. Yes. I take my denominator and set it equal to 0. It's just your domain restrictions. Your vertical asymptotes become your domain restrictions if you can't cancel anything out at the top. Every time, that's where they come from. Now, do I have horizontal asymptote? How do I find a horizontal asymptote? What do the horizontal asymptotes depend upon? N and M. So what's the degree of my numerator? 1. What's my degree of my denominator?
2.
What is the relationship between N and M?
N is less than M.
So what's my horizontal asymptote? Y equals 0. So if I have a horizontal, can I have a slant? So what do I write under slant? None. Now what do I need to find? My x-intercepts. So how do I find my x-intercepts? I take my numerator and I set it equal to 0. So what's my numerator? N plus 1 is x plus 1 is equal to 0, so x is equal to negative 1. Is that what the form that I want my x-intercept in? No, what's the form I want my x-intercept in? No. An ordered pair of points. So what's the ordered pair? Negative 1 comma 0. Very good. Now I need to have my y-intercept. How do I find it? I'm going to do f at 0. So that's going to be x plus 1 over x squared minus x minus 6. And every place I see an x, what do I plug in for? 0. So that's going to give me 0 plus 1 over 0 squared minus 0 minus 6 to give me 1 over negative 6. Is that the form that I want my y-intercept in? No. What is the form? What is the form? And what's the ordered pair?
0.
Okay, so I have x, y intercept, slant, horizontal, and vertical, and my domain. What is my brain supposed to skip to right now? To graphing all of that jazz, right? So if I graph that stuff, I have a vertical asymptote at where? 3 and negative 2. And where do I have my horizontal asymptote at?
1 and 2.
Horizontal asymptote. Y equals 0. Now, if I have y equals 0, that goes clear across there. An alarm should be sounding off in your head right now. As soon as I cross two vertical asymptotes like that, that immediately tells me something's going on. And that something that's going on means that I need to back this thing up and simply go to that vertical. And then from here, I'm going to have another vertical. And how did I know that? Because what is my x-intercept?
Or -1.
Is -1, 0. Well, how in the world can I have a horizontal asymptote there on the x-axis when I have an x-intercept at -1, 0? I can't, right? So I know inside there I have something going on, don't I? What's my y-intercept? Puts me right there. Now what do I have to do after that? I need to find points. So what that means is that I actually need to graph this thing. So I want a graph page, and I'm going to graph, what was it, x plus 1 over x squared minus x minus 6, and hit enter. That's what I got going on, right? So if that's what I have going on, I need to now get ordered pairs. So how do I get ordered pairs? How do I get that? Control T for table. Now I need to go below my smallest vertical asymptote. What was my smallest vertical asymptote? -2. So I need to have this thing go all the way back down here to -8 or something like that and see some nice numbers to graph. So you're going to write these down. What are some nice numbers to graph, you think? What's -3.333 repeating? That's -3 and -1/3. Write that point down. -3, -1/3. Write that point down. I didn't say just graph it, I said to write it down. Now, you need to go in between your two vertical asymptotes. But what's between your two vertical asymptotes? So that's going to be between -2 and -3, or +3. So what points are easy to graph there that we haven't already? We already graphed our x and y intercepts for the first two. Now what about the second two? 1, -1/3 works. What's another one? 2 and -3/4. Write those down. That's what you're going to write on the part on the test with the XY table tomorrow. I would like you to, so that you know where they are. Now I need to graph something larger than 3. So what's a good number to graph larger than 3? Guess what, folks? Are there any pretty numbers that you know? No, which means you need to pick one that you think is approximately where your eye can graph. And what's one that you could approximately graph with your eye there? 4.083 you can probably eyeball. 5.0.428 you can probably eyeball to be close about to a half, right? So I would write down those two. Okay? And after that, what are you going to do? You're going to start plotting. So the first point that we talked about was going to be -3, -1/3, right? And we know it's going to look like this. The second thing we were going to plot in between -2 and 3 was going to be what? 1 and -1/3, and then 2 and -3/4. And then what we have going on is something that looks like this. And the next one we were going to graph was, is it 5? It's going to look something like that. Now, you can get the graph right off of the picture of the graph right off of your graphing. So don't think I'm dumb. Okay? I understand you're going to have that graph right every time. What am I looking for as I'm grading? Points. You don't plot those points, you're not getting the points for the graph. Do we understand that?
So I only have to, like, if it's a graph like this, I have to plot like one of them points on the...
I would like to have at least 2 on each side. Like I would like to have that one and then there and there. These gives me a good idea. This one and then over here. Just so that I can see it's going in both directions. Okay? Alright, let's do it all over again. Step 1, what am I looking for? Domain. What's the domain of the stuff? X plus 1 cannot be 0, so x cannot be -1. X is the name of the reals. Next. Vertical asymptote. So how do I find my vertical? What do I have to do first? Simplify. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to pull out an x. That's going to give me x minus 1 over x plus 1. Can anything cancel out? No, nothing cancels out. So therefore, what's my vertical asymptote? Go straight to your domain. And it's going to be x equals negative 1. If these were exactly the same, they were both minus or both plus, then you could cancel it out, and then you wouldn't have a vertical asymptote in that case. Does that make sense? Okay. Horizontal. Horizontal, what's my degree of my numerator? 2. What's my degree of my denominator, which is m? And if 2 is, I'm sorry, n is greater than m, so what type of horizontal asymptote do I have? I have none. You need to make sure that you write that down. Because now, what does that imply that I could possibly have, but I don't have to? I could have a slant. I don't technically have to. When do you have a slant? When the numerator of when the degree of the numerator is 1 unit larger than the degree of the denominator. So, is this 1 unit larger? Yep. Yes, so I have a slant. So how do I find the slant? I do long division. What do I multiply x squared by to get? Or what do I multiply x by to get x squared? X. That gives me x squared plus x. I'm subtracting a quantity, and since I'm subtracting a quantity, that's going to change those. That's gone. Negative x and negative x gives you negative 2x plus 0. What do I multiply x by to get negative 2x? Negative 2. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And I'm subtracting a quantity, so therefore the signs change. That's gone. I'm left with 2 as my remainder. Do I care about my remainder?
No.
No. So what's my slant asymptote? Y is equal to? X minus 2. Now, how in the world is that helpful? I have to graph x minus 2. So how do I graph x minus 2? What do I need out of that? Come on. It's the most elementary thing that we've learned whenever we're graphing. Mx plus b. So what do I need out? What's my slope? 1 over 1, so that's up 1 to the right 1. What's my b value? Which gives me an ordered pair being 0, negative 2. So if I stop right here, and I go straight to my graph, where do I start at right now? I start at 0, negative 2. I go up 1 to the right 1, up 1 to the right 1, up 1 to the right 1, and I make this into a slant asymptote. Do I need those points there anymore? No, I don't. So there's my slant asymptote. What's my vertical asymptote? X equals negative 1, so I'm going to graph that at x equals negative 1. Okay? So now I go back. I graph my vertical and my slant. Now what am I missing in my information here that you're going to have to do tomorrow? Nope. Well, I am, but you're not ready for that yet. X and Y intercept. So how do I find my X intercept? That means I'm going to take n of x and set that equal to 0. So that was x squared minus x is equal to 0. X minus 1 times x is equal to 0. So what's my x intercepts? X equals 0 and x is equal to 1. Is that the form that I want them in? No. What do I want? 0, 0, and 1, 0. So there's my x-intercepts. Now what do I want? My y-intercept. So if I want my y-intercept, that means I'm doing f at 0, so that's x squared minus x over x plus 1. And every place you see an x, what do you plug it in? 0. 0 squared minus 0 over 0 plus 1. That whole thing's going to give you 0, which absolutely makes sense. Why? Because you already have an x-intercept at 0, 0, which would have to imply that what about the y-intercept? That it's 0, 0, right? So this tells me that if I come back over here and plot these points, I have an x-intercept at 0, 0, and I have an x-intercept at 1, 0. Now, look at that. What does that tell you? Something's going on between the points 0, 0 and the points 1, 0, isn't there? It's either dropping below or it's going above, right? So what do I do after this? I've already graphed my x and y intercepts, my asymptotes, what else? Now I need to go to my table. So if I go to my table, I have to graph this thing. So I'm going to insert a new page, Control Doc. I want it to be a graphs page, and I want it to be x squared minus x over x plus 1. So I move this thing up. That's going to be my lovely little graph. You can see the slant asymptote. Now, what do I need to get out of here? Control T for my table. My table's going in units of 1, is it not? Well, how many units is there between 0, 0 and 1, 0? 1 unit. Am I going to be able to see what's going on in there between the result? There's 1 unit increments? No. So what do I need my increments to be here? I need to go over here to my table settings, and I need to take my steps to be 0.5. Menu. Edit table settings. Now I'm able to see what's going on between 0 and 1, aren't I? I can see that it's going below. Yes? So now I need to pick out some points here. So what type of points am I going to choose? I have a vertical asymptote at what value? -1. So I need to know what's going on with this thing below -1. So are there any nice points to graph below -1? -5 and -7.5 is great to me. You said, what did you just say?
-2 and -6.
-2 and -6, -3, -6. Look, what's going on there? Aren't you glad we put that half unit increments? Because I would have had exactly the same going on between 0, 0 and 0, 1, right? I should say 0, 0 and 1, 0, sorry. We had the same thing going on here at -3, -6, -2, -6. So you need to write those points down. So after you've graphed everything and you've graphed those points, it's going to look like this. Okay, and of course you're just going to be accurate and you're going to plus 1. Now that's 2.6 and 2.7. Now it's 2-8. 2-8 is about entering data. How do I enter in data in my graphing calculator, folks?
I
need to insert a new page here, and I need to insert data. So what do I want?
Data and statistics.
No.
No, list spreadsheets.
List and spreadsheets is where you want to enter in your data. Okay? After I've entered in my data, I need to make a scatter plot of it. What do I need to do to make a scatter plot? I need to have a new page. And what type of page do I want? I want a graphs page, and then once I'm on my graphs page, what do I want? I need to make a scatter plot. Can I make a scatter plot right away here? No, what do I have to do? Hit menu, graph entry, and what am I looking for?
Scatter plot.
Scatter plot. So once I do a scatter plot, you can't do it because we don't have any data right now. Okay, so now I have a scatter plot. Now, how do I see all my data? Menu, window, zoom, and what do I want to find? Zoom data. So then I need to now find my regression model. So how do I find regression models? type of page do I need to do in a regression model? Calculator page. So I control doc and I had a calculator page. How do I do regression? Menu, statistics, stat calculations, and what am I looking for? Quadratic regression. Once you hit quadratic regression, now you're going to fill out your X, you're going to fill out your Y, you're going to store it, right? How do I see it once I've stored it? Where do I hit enter at? I need to go back to my graph page, right? And do the menu, graph entry, and do the function, right? Arrow up one and hit enter because it's going to be stored in there. Now how do I compare values? How do you select your function? Triple click on it, select it, and then where do I go in my document? I need to go back to my lovely little table. Where do I paste that in at? The gray section. Do we understand that? You got to go back and delete the f of 1 of x is equal to, right? If you need help with that tomorrow, whenever you get stuck, by all means, please ask me. I can help you in that area. Okay? Now, if I want to do comparing and I give you the year, what am I looking for if I give you the year? If I give you the year, I'm looking for the information that you get out, the y value, right? So that's a simple plug and shove, let x equal the year, plug out to get y, right? What if I give you the year or the value and I want to know the year? Where do you have to go to get that information? Your table. We understand that because you're working backwards. You're working backwards. If I ask for a prediction, in the year 2015, yada, 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 what are we going to have? How do you do that problem?
Your table.
Graph trace for F1 at whatever value you're doing. Okay, do we all understand this? That's the test tomorrow. The test is not difficult. I've gone over the hardest part of it today in class with you. Any questions? Is it a 2-day test? I still don't know yet. If you know what you're doing, it should not be a 2-day test. If you don't know what you're doing, it could possibly be a 2-day test. Any questions over what I just said?